Hello, welcome to the Jack and Joe show. Joe Sansom, it's been a while since we spoke. In fact, the last time we spoke was pre the second leg of the Carabao Cup, and since then we've gone out of the FA Cup, and find ourselves in a precarious position in the Premier League. Joe, how are you?
Yeah, well, I'm good aside from that, but yeah, I mean, I was going to crack a joke about how it being a huge shame that our Carabao Cup second leg got postponed or something like that and never happened because I've just wiped it from my memory already. Um, but yeah, I'm doing well. Obviously, we missed the deadline day shenanigans or lack of
It was far from
when I was
shenanigans.
away. Yeah, but I obviously tuned into the stream. I think you guys did a sterling job as always, talking about, in all honesty, very little in terms of content. But I hope everyone enjoyed the stream, and I hope everyone's been well this last couple of weeks. Before we get into the video, a word from our sponsor, Green King Sport, and obviously still very grateful for their sponsorship throughout this 2023 to 24 season. Get yourself down to a Green King Sport pub. We've had a few more TV picks been announced. So, for example, the Tottenham game next month will now be the Sky evening kickoff. But Jack, there's a few great games this weekend. Obviously, Fulham's at 3:00, but for anyone that wants to go to a Green King Sport pub and take in any of the other Premier League action, there's quite a lot to choose from.
Yep, absolutely. Massive games this weekend, and you can catch them at the Green King pub. We start at the Etihad on TNT Sports. Manchester City hosting Everton. Everton getting a point out of Spurs, and City winning last night against Brentford. We're recording today on the Tuesday. And then there's the 3:00, and we have the late kickoff, 3:00, of which Fulham play Bournemouth. We'll get into that in a little bit. Huge game for Nottingham Forest. They host Newcastle, who seem to be picking up some form of late. Am I right in saying that? I can't even remember.
Slightly, yeah, because I mean they beat us, they beat Villa, they drew against Luton.
That was it. Yeah, they're scoring goals.
Yeah,
I'm so scrambled. Right. Yeah, that's a 5:30 on Sky, and then we go to Super Sunday. Massive game. West Ham hosting Arsenal. Of course, that game was what really was one of the nails in the coffin for Arsenal's title bid last season in the 2-2 draw. But they host each other. West Ham host Arsenal. They play each other on Sunday at 2:00 in the late kickoff at Villa Park. Aston Villa against Manchester United. Monday night football, the pride of South London, the famous Palace boys at home to Chelsea. Or should I say Walham Green? I mean, that is a mid-table clash for the ages after Chelsea lost 4-2 to Wolverhampton Wanderers at the weekend. I think that was probably what cheered me up, Joe, on Sunday after Fulham's disappointing 2-2 draw to Burnley. Look, let's not analyse it to the nth degree, but we were 2 up. We were cruising. Muniz had chipped the keeper. Paulinho had nodded one in. Then what? It was the most comfortable 2-0 lead you'll ever have, and we somehow only came out with a point, and I'm still really frustrated by it, Joe.
Me too. This is an incredibly stupid and obvious thing to say, but other than the games that we've lost this season, without a doubt the most frustrating game. But I would even probably put it above quite a few losses. This game annoyed me far more than even losing to Chelsea away a few weeks ago, which had my head in a different dimension. This a different stratosphere within a universe, dimension, galaxy, whatever. Like, as you say, so comfortable. And it was just get the third goal, kill the game. They're not scoring 3. Get the third goal, kill the game. And we had the chances. Trafford, to his credit, made some great saves. It's not just a lack of bad finishing. He did make some good saves. But once they got 1, I think you could tell that there was only one way this game was going to end. And it wasn't 3-1 and it wasn't 2-1. It was going to be 2-2. I've seen a lot of people come out after the game and, the goals, everyone's analysed to death. We know they're 2 individual errors. We don't need to go into that again. Leno for the first one, Tete for the second one.
I'd argue Pereira for the first one as well.
Well, yeah, in terms of the first one, in fact, there's about 3 people that could have stopped the cross at source or stopped the run. But in terms of the goal itself, Leno. But yes, the run up to the goal, 100%. The same with the second one. Tete, is most culpable because without him making a bit of an error, we'd have cut out the cross and we'd have hopefully seen out the rest of the game. But I don't think Ream's positioning in the box is great. I don't think the anticipation from anyone at the start of that counter-attack is good enough in coming deep enough. But the game management between their first goal and the second goal, I think was fine. They didn't have a single effort at all. And I've seen a lot of people discrediting Marco Silva. I don't think he actually did anything wrong.
Wrong? No, he did nothing wrong.
The players are the ones that, on this occasion, have let the side down. So I just sort of wanted to hopefully nip that in the bud, or at least give my 2 cents on it. But incredibly frustrating, Jack, because I thought the Burnley were pretty woeful. Could barely keep possession for a lot of it, weren't creating anything of note. Defense was looking so leaky. Let's look at positives for a few seconds, because we have to. We scored 2 goals. That makes it even more frustrating that we didn't win the game, but scoring 2 goals is a massive, massive plus. Muniz scoring a goal is a gigantic and shocking plus, because I think the bloke's been woeful this season and every other time he's played for us. I love his commitment, not good enough. And I was delighted that on the weekend, that statement I've just said, he completely discredited that. I still think that is the truth, and that Saturday was a blip in a positive way in terms of what we've seen from him. But I thought he was great. I thought his overall hold-up play, coming deep, his positioning in the box, which I've been annoyed at before in terms of not getting in threatening positions, his anticipation and his finishing, it was all there. And I was loving to see it. I'm just annoyed that it's taken another striker coming in for him to show that.
Yeah, but you could flip it and also say that, this will then... I think that Broja should start every single game for the rest of the season now anyway, but I think that this gives Muniz a bit of a confidence boost. And if he does play more minutes, if he does start more games, then hopefully we see better performances from him. It only takes a goal to boost someone's confidence. Look at the way Jimenez responded to his first goal. So there's always 2 sides to it, if I want to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, well, you know what, Jack? That's a very fair point. And the Jimenez example is the perfect one because of the run of form that he had just after that first goal that he got against Villa before that international break. I think that a few things that I didn't like, just to go back on the negatives slightly. I mean, the only positive I said was that we scored 2 goals, and that was basically all there was, in all honesty.
Also, we created quite a lot of chances. We created a lot.
Yeah, and again, that's something that happened against Everton, which obviously I haven't spoken to you since. Both of these games we should have won. And I think that is a positive and a negative. The negative is that we're creating those chances, we're not taking them. The positive is that at least we're making them now. We don't look completely inept going forward. And the other positive to that is we still look a considerable cut above a lot of these sides that are down there. So before there's any relegation sort of chatter, I don't see any of these sides coming and beating us. And I'm not looping Bournemouth into that bracket. I think they're a cut above, and we'll go on to our predictions in a minute. I'm talking about the teams that are down there and in big trouble. And I don't think that we are one of those, Jack, despite the slight hysteria on Saturday, which I did understand because it's been quite a negative time this last month or so in isolation. To be a Fulham fan, just nothing's really gone our way. The ticket stuff, the transfer business, everything's just sort of been a little bit low. And when something like that happens, everything sort of comes to the boil, and it can all be quashed with a massive win against Bournemouth if we were to get it on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. I did think the reaction was slightly over the top. If it was a horrendous performance and we came over a point, then I could understand it but I thought the performance was really good, large spells of the game. Say what you want about Robinson's assist for the Muniz goal, because it was quite innocuous. It was accidental, if anything, but it was an insane pass, and well done to Muniz to keep himself onside. I admit Trafford probably should have done better with the goal. Like he should have saved it. It was quite funny.
He's from the Pickford school of little arms, unfortunately. But then for the rest of the game, he just grew them exponentially. And you know what? More than atoned for that error, because in the end, I would say, other than Fofana getting the 2 goals, he was probably their best player.
The frustrating thing about it is that the point for Burnley makes next to no difference to their season, really. It gets them a point closer to Luton, but evidently, like, those 2 points for us would have got us up to 28. If we got another 2 against Everton, we would have been on 30. Yeah,
I mean, the fashion that we lost it in makes it feel like a loss. That is a much better point for us than it is for Burnley by a million miles. They had to beat us, really. We're the second worst away form in the league. Granted, we've played pretty much all of the top 10 and very few of the lower ranked teams, Burnley aside, for example. Sheffield United have got a worse record, but that's it. That's our 7th point we've picked up. Obviously, we've got 3 on that day in Goodison Park in August, Jack, when we had a great time and an undeserved great time as well.
But also, sorry, like it brings me on to another point. The mentality of seeing out a game away from home, again, lacking. Burnley conceding 2 after being 2-0 up, so frustrating. Even Liverpool in the first leg, 1-0 up, concede 2. Liverpool again, 3-2 up, still lose the game 4-3. Aston Villa was a bit more of a, we were out the game really, but these are the examples I'm sort of giving as to like recently away from home, the mentality is not been there to be out games and get extra points. I think Sheffield United have sealed their fate, losing 5-0 to Villa. I was chuckling as every goal went in really for Villa. It was quite a funny watch. No disrespect to Chris Wilder and Sheffield United, but it's nice to sort of, I think they're so cut adrift now. We don't have to worry. Do we have to worry? That's the question, really.
No.
I agree. I
still stand by we don't, and I've said it all season. And if I'm made to look silly at the end, if we get dragged in, then fine. But there are too many teams worse than us, and we're not playing well right now, and they're still worse than us. We've got 2 starters coming back from the Africa Cup of Nations next week. We've got several players coming back from injury. And we're still playing reasonably well against Everton and Burnley. We outplayed both of them, and those are with all of those caveats. I would say we only need to win another 2 or 3 games this season, and we're absolutely mathematically safe.
I couldn't agree more, because, like we were talking about this earlier this season, the threshold to stay up this season is going to be lower than normal seasons. So I'm looking at a points tally of 36, and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
potentially even lower than that. And we're on 26 now. Like, there's like how many games we got left? 15 games to go, 10 points in that. Like, and this is also what's annoyed me about the overreaction on Twitter. And I apologize. I don't want to dig out individuals, but as a collective, just chill. Because if you look back in previous seasons in the Premier League, I'm going to go to the 12-13 Premier League table. We literally finished 7 points above the relegation zone. Now, right now, we are 7 points above the relegation zone. You get this when you're like in lower mid-table, 13th, whatever. You're going to be close to the relegation zone by points. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get relegated, because there's more teams below you who are even looking over their shoulder. Like, we've been in precarious situations before in like 11, 12, 13, even seasons before that, where we've probably been in this position at this stage of the season because there's no social media. And because there's no platform for people to have a say, because it just wasn't around those days, there was no hysteria. There was no panic. There might have been panic in the stands when you're like, oh God, I think, we're going to be in trouble while you're, updating teletext or whatever and looking at the table. But in terms of like, this is not that, it's not that deep. Like, I could understand if we lose our next 4 or 5 games and everyone below us picks up points, then you panic. Then you're banging trouble. But if I'm a Brentford fan, if I'm a Palace fan, if I'm a Forest fan, if I'm an Everton fan, I'm panicking. If I'm a Luton fan, I'm looking upwards. I think they're doing great. Brentford last night, when they were 1-0 up, I was panicking, but I wasn't like scrambling for the panic button. But then obviously City came back and won. Palace, Elise out, Eze out, Gay out. They want Roy out.
Decore out.
Panic. Decore out. It's panic stations. Forest still have they still have in the background FFP and whatever comes of that in the background. That's panic stations. Everton in the relegation zone. That's panic stations. Again, they could still have another points deduction. They could appeal. They have appealed it. It could get overturned. I don't think there's any scenario right now where we need to panic. I thought Brogier's 20 minutes was good. He looked good. Sorry, Joe.
No, it's absolutely fine. I was just going to say, you named in that period there, Jack, which I completely agree with every word you said. You named 5 teams. For us to be in any danger, all 5 of those teams have to overtake us, not one. Because obviously, when you look at it, and I do it as well, I'm thinking, okay, 7 points to the drop zone. If they win a game, it's 4. Well, not necessarily, because you've got a team just above them on 1 point less. So it's actually 6, for example. So we are no closer to the relegation zone than we were at the start of play on Saturday. Everton drew. We drew. They're in 18th. And in all honesty, we've got a game out of the way, which is away from home. Our home form is the thing that's going to keep us up from what we've seen so far this season. I know we've got quite a few tough games left, but we've still got games against Bournemouth, against Villa, Brighton, Spurs, against Palace. It's not out of the question that we get results in these. And I completely agree, Jack. And I'm not slagging anyone off. You're not out of order for worrying. We're just sort of trying to say that let's all chill out, because if you were a neutral right now looking at Fulham, I don't think you're thinking Fulham are going to go down.
No, I agree.
Bournemouth, Jack. And
let's go on to Bournemouth.
Well, no, I was also going to say, even them, like you're not going to say Bournemouth are going to go down, are you? And they're 1 point ahead of us.
No, in that you can make a case for Chelsea. They're obviously not going to go. They're not going to go. But yeah, like we win on Saturday. We go to 29 points, and then suddenly we could be like, because Everton plays City, and the City win that, we could be 10 points clear, and then you look at then the panic is just evaporated. And there's a point to be made that it looks like two teams that are already sort of cut adrift in Burnley and Sheffield United. Therefore, there's only one place left for relegation, and two of those teams don't know their futures because it's all up in the air because of the Premier League's profit sustainability rules and financial fair play. It's sort of madness to panic, but also I can understand fans are reactionary. We just lost at the last minute. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, I didn't flinch when Fofana made it 2-2. I was seething. I was effing and jeffing, and my mum was telling me to calm down. I said, I tell you what, I'm going for a pint of lager, and it was disappointing because we were going to go out to celebrate the win, and then obviously we went out to sort of drown our sorrows instead. Anyway, Bournemouth at home. Philip Billing suspended for a red card. By the way, Bournemouth fans saying it's never a red card. It's definitely a red card. It's a terrible 100%, tackle.
Yeah.
And let's just have a look at the way they lined up against Nottingham Forest, because I believe Billing came off the bench, which is even more frustrating if you're a Bournemouth fan. Neto in goal, Adam Smith at the back, with Zabarini, Sensi, and Kelly. Good name. Cook and Christie, Semenyo, Cliver, Sinistera, Solanke. That's a good front four, that is. It really is a good front four. And let's not forget they took us to the cleaners. On Boxing Day in what was probably our worst performance of the season, Joe. And I get horrible flashbacks to that game we played against them last season at the Cottage, a 2-2 draw. Solanke scoring after, a minute and a half? This is a tough game. This is a very tough game.
It's a really tough game. They've got a great record against us in all the years of us supporting Fulham since we first played them in the Championship in what would have been maybe 2014. We just don't really seem to be able to beat them. And Solanke seems to score against us every time he steps on the pitch. It's a massive boost that Tosin is apparently okay, based on the Evening Standards report tonight, or this evening, I should say. How do I see it going? Well, one thing that's playing on my mind is that Semenyo is also injured. Tavernier, Bournemouth fans have been saying, has not been playing as well. He's a player that's caused us massive issues. So I'm really hoping he doesn't suddenly break back into form on the weekend. They weren't amazing against Forest the other afternoon, I should say, getting all my times confused. And obviously with 10 men, they just sort of saw out the game, which, it happens. It's still a point. It's at home. Fine. They've been playing very well overall over the last few months and been one of the most formed teams in the league in terms of points, but also in terms of performances. Like, they've really been showing the style like they did when they beat us 3-0 on Boxing Day, like you say, Jack. That being said, the last games for us have obviously been 2 draws. Their last games have also been 2 draws, both of theirs being 1-1 at West Ham and also against Forest. And I have got to say, I'm doing the score prediction now before I've even done the team.
Do it.
I am absolutely convinced that this ends as a draw. And I don't think that's a bad result. I don't think it's like a great result. I'm not going to celebrate it. We're at home. I want to win. But I think it would be fine. And I think it'll be a draw. I think Solanke will score because he always does. I think we'll have another good performance and not quite get over the line against a good team, a team that I think are better than Everton and a team that I think are better than Burnley.
Okay, that's interesting. Interesting. I'm just looking at the head-to-head we've had with Bournemouth. Obviously, they beat us on Boxing Day, and they beat us at the Vitality last season. I remember Tavernier scoring a wonder strike in that game. The previous 3 games were all draws. Do you remember that one? A Tosin scored in that big clash at the top of the table. Parker returned to the sausage. It was the 1-1 draw where Mitrovic scored that weird header and they scored a penalty to deny us the title. And then the 2-2 draw, like I mentioned earlier, in the Premier League. Lineup. Leno, don't be dropping Leno just because he makes a couple of errors. He's the best keeper we've had since Mark Swartz, so it's silly. Robinson, Tosin starts, and then Ream. Yeah, Ream.
Yeah.
Kenny Tete or Castagna. I'm going to go Tete, if that's okay.
It's okay, Jack.
João Palhinha, Tom Kearney, for my sins, Andreas Pereira, Willian Brozier. Hello. First start for the number 9. And then, oh no, Wilson, Bobby Reid.
Yeah.
Bobby Reid.
Yeah. Completely agree. Other than I'd go Castagna, but
Castagna.
And the reason I'd go Castagna is actually I think he's been more of a goal threat lately, which I've liked. He hasn't got the goal, but he's been in the right positions, and I'd like to see him. He had a few efforts from set pieces against Burnley as well. He was on the end of the balls in. Very, very excited that this is, we think, the last game without Iwobi and Bassi. Just can't wait to have them back. They improve our team so much, and it's going to be very interesting, regardless of opposition, seeing the difference between Saturday 3 p.m. against Bournemouth and Saturday 3 p.m. the following week against Villa, when hopefully we have those two in the starting 11, because I think they offer us so much, both going forward and defensively. And I don't just mean defensively from Bassi and offensively from Iwobi. I think they both do both jobs very well. I think they are fantastic assets for us to have. Jack, I did my score. What do you reckon, mate?
Oh, not sure. I think Fulham are going to win. I think we're going to win by 2-1, and I think we'll be 2 up, and they'll get a goal back, which actually fills me with horror and dread because of our recent result against Burnley. However, I think we'll see this one out at home in front of the Craven Cottage fans. It's worth mentioning, and a huge congratulations to Josh King for making the first team bench on Saturday. That was amazing. So congratulations to him. Congratulations on his pro contract as well. I mean, this is it's a story I've tried to get to the bottom of. Not that there's anything to discover. He's just a good footballer, but there is something there, and I really want to sort of dig a little bit deeper and find out more about Josh and what his potential is at Fulham. And Marco seems to rate him. He wanted to take him on the summer series, but he just fell short of the pecking order. So hopefully next summer Josh gets his chance. But the fact of the matter is he's being noticed. So I'm very, very excited for him. And given he's a local lad from Wimbledon as well. So many, many congratulations to him. And we can't wait to see him in the future. I had something else to say, but I can't quite remember what it was. Joe, any final words before we call it a day?
Not really. Looking forward to being back at the Cottage on Saturday, and we've got a double header, 2 Saturdays in a row, 2 3 p.m. games. Really, really happy with that, and really excited for both of them. Both games against very good teams, and when we've come up against good teams at the Cottage this season so far, we've performed well. The Arsenal game being the perfect example of that, and I'm really looking forward to getting back there and hopefully picking up 3 points.
Final word. Brentford losing last night, and they're on 22 points, 3 points above the relegation zone, and we play them the third to last game of the season. Could you imagine a scenario where we could relegate them? I don't think it will happen. I think that they could get relegated, but I don't think it necessarily will happen. I think there's too much. That there are worse teams. Sorry, and like you mentioned earlier. But could you imagine if we went to the G-Tech and sunk them? It would be up there with in Fulham folklore, and whoever would score, they would be forever Fulham. Joe, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Jack. Good to be back, and thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for all the support on the videos, and come on, you Whites.
We'll be back next week to look at the Bournemouth game and look ahead to the Villa game. Let's hope we're sitting here with 3 more points in the bag and up to 29 points. Do you remember last season we took ages to get to 40 points? Let's just get to 30 and see where we lie. But yeah, looking forward to the weekend ahead, actually, and should be some cracking football. And like you say, if you can't get to Fulham, or you can't, if you want to watch any of those live games, then head down to a Green King Sport pub and watch them there. Thanks so much for watching. And well, come on, Fulham.